You're listening to the podcast that changed the game and rocked an entire profession. Talking about shit in law enforcement that keeps poor leaders up at night. When others run scared and hide behind fake policies, the Roll Call Room podcast tells it like it is. No bullshit. No matter how hard these thieves try, we keep killing it. And now, here are your hosts, Nick and Mark.
Definitely infected. Hey, Mark. Welcome to another episode of the Roll Call Room podcast. I am one of your hosts, 25%. Nick, with me is my co-host, 75%.
Oh, I thought Mark the cop. Hey, I thought you meant Nick. 25% was your new street name now.
25, yeah.
25% Nick.
If I was, listen,
no, wait a minute, man, you're the OG out there for everyone that's listening. Everybody's like, oh man,
I don't know. Every
Roll Call Room is the shit.
Every time I turn on Instagram, there's another fucking cop podcast popping up, and
see, you should be honored.
I support every person that wants to do one, but it's kind of funny.
Good luck, brother.
Sorry, no, it's more of like we're the original, or like we're cutting edge. We tell it how it is, and I'm like, yeah, you're doing it at a time where it's acceptable. Like you're doing it at a time where all the cops are like, okay, this is not something. Do it in 2019. Do it in 2019
exactly.
While you're still a cop, while you're still like a cop, and on probation.
Balls ain't so big no more, are they? There, tough guy.
Yeah. I just laughed.
Fucking moose nuts hanging them out there like that.
I laughed at myself because I just heard myself say it out loud while you're on probation. 17 years on the job, and I was on probation.
Yeah,
it's so asinine, man.
I'm glad you brought that up. I'm just going to go on a total wild tangent that we did not do any pre-production on. I had the honor of meeting Jake Clark from Safer Warrior, and one of Jake's sayings is "never step in the same river twice." And I went, man, isn't that hitting the nail on the head? And I guess I want to do a brief dive into this river, if you want to say. Once you leave a department, don't go back. Just stay out of there, man. And I'm not saying what you did, Nick, was wrong, but you did the best. You made the best decision with what you had. And your fatal mistake was thinking that they were honorable men. And they lull you into this false sense of security or no, strike that. You trusted them, and you gave them trust when trust wasn't worthy.
Yeah, and you and I talked about this. Can't remember because you and I have so many conversations offline that should be online. We talked about doing a future episode on abuse and why we go back. It's indicative of like domestic violence.
My goodness, yes.
You return back to it over and over and over and over. And I think if you're listening to this, you can appreciate how you'll have a really, really bad shift. You'll have and I'm not talking about on the street. I'm not talking about going on bad calls, because that's going to be no matter what department you go to. I'm talking about you go in and you have a shit fuck supervisor or commander, and they just make fucking life terrible. and it's that day that you go in, and this person is just got the fucking weight of the world on you, and they're just fucking nitpicking the motherfuck out of you, and you get in that cruiser, and you're like, you know what? I know where this motherfucker lives. I want to fucking go to his house and cut his goldfish's fucking wing off so it just swims in a circle, like one of those fucking days,
I want to cut your
But then you go
goldfish
home,
fin off.
just spins in a circle, like it can't spin straight, like swim straight.
Yeah, you love it.
And then like you get done with your shift, you get changed in the locker room, or you don't. You're one of those people that drive home in your uniform. Shame on you. That'll be another episode.
Oh yeah.
And then you wake up and you're like, yeah, but this is my calling. This is what I love to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go back, and you go back again and again and again and again. And then before you know it, because you can't fight at work, you start doing it at home.
Oh yeah.
And then you start enjoying that abuse. And you start enjoying it. Enjoying it meaning you're not hopping into work going, "Ooh, I can't wait till my fucking lieutenant sticks his fingers inside me." No, not that. It's more of like your body is conditioned to deal with that abuse, and if you don't have that abuse, it's just a void. And I don't just mean that in police work. In my personal life, I noticed that law enforcement has conditioned me in that way. I've noticed that toxic things that I partake in, I do indiscriminate. Like it's just subliminally. Like this happened a couple of days ago. I messaged you and I said, "Hey, listen, this is what's going on with me."
Right.
And you're like, "Don't do it."
Yep, that's right. Don't.
What did I do? I did it. Like
Danger, Will Robinson.
Yeah, and that's the meme that you sent me, and it's not out of I trust you with my life, man. Like so I take your word of advice so much, but it was like an earth magnet to another.
Oh yeah,
it was, and I haven't had that since I left law enforcement, Mark. It was the first time in a long time, and it's toxic, man. And I think it's because I miss it. I miss.
You miss the toxicity?
I miss that type of abuse. Yeah.
Oh,
it's subliminally. Okay.
Yeah.
Subliminally. I do. There's parts of, because I don't get it where I work now. I don't have that. I work with an incredible team where they're not trying to stab each other in the back. And it truly is a team. It's because we all own shares of stock in this company.
Mm-hmm.
And if you fail, I fail, my retirement goes out the fucking window because my stocks are going to be worth shit. And it almost makes you wonder why we don't do that with law enforcement. What is there, other than your pension, what is your overall incentive?
Yeah, exactly.
But
I can tell you my overall incentive was you get to do some really cool fucking shit. Some people it's all about the powers, but for me it wasn't about that. It was about, I'm a people person and I loved getting out and meeting people, and the beauty of it is the community I worked for, and we'll say it, let's come out of the closet. It was Tip City. Here in Ohio, it's a small city. And I love the community, and there were great folks here, and a lot of professionals live here because we're a suburb of Dayton, Ohio, and but when I left, under the circumstances in which the management of my department put me in the headspace, I don't even go into the city anymore, dude. I get anxiety going in. Mr. Hat called me the other night and said, "Hey, man, why don't you come into the VFW? FD Donnie's playing." Because FD Donnie's a DJ. I'm like, I thought about it. I said, "No, I'm not going to come." He's like, "Why not?" I said, "Because it fires up my fucking PTSD, to be honest with you. It's been fucking 4 years." So I'm like, get over it. No, when you are betrayed, that way, and you're talking about that abuse that is like a domestic violence, a case where people ask the women or the abused victim, why do you stay? Well, you stay because you tend to run to things that seem normal to you.
Mm-hmm.
And but what I need to do is I need to do my personal growth and work and get over that and go out and start being seen again, because I was having a chat with one of my former officers, and there's a new administrator at the department, and it's the new deputy chief, and he says, I've never met Mark, but this city loves this guy.
Yeah.
But the chief hates him.
Yeah. Your reputation subsides it. Is that the right word?
Precedes you.
Precedes you.
Yeah,
Jesus
reputation precedes you. But,
and
I always took
happens when
care
you
of people.
report in the morning.
And your cats are awake.
I know. I just threw something at it. What's
It's either a cat or the hooker that's in there trying to get out.
No, that I always get out early. I pay by the hour.
We're joking. We're joking.
The interesting part about that was, I messaged you I want to say a couple of weeks ago. I was on the train for work. I was on the train to
nowhere.
Where was I going? Jersey,
last train to
Philly,
Clarksville.
I don't even remember where the fuck I was going. I've been so many places the last 2 months.
You can start singing that Johnny Cash song. I've been everywhere.
Yeah, it's starting to feel that way. So I was on the train, and I messaged you something that popped in my head because I was in the middle of finishing up my book that's coming out.
Yeah.
And I messaged you something, and I just did it out of the blue. And I would have loved to have been on the other end of your phone, because you probably were like, what the fuck is this? And I was messaging it to you so I wouldn't forget it.
Oh, yes. Am I looking it up for you?
Well, no, I messaged you. I used to drive around my city aimlessly, and now I drive through my city to better things.
Yes.
And it was profound, because what I meant by that was I used to drive around. I used to be confined in my 15.5 square miles city over and over and over and over, and go for calls for service and be proactive and do all of this stuff. And I was confined within that city. And I was happy doing it. Don't get me wrong. I was very happy doing that. And I would have done it for 30 years. Crazy. Now thinking about it, crazy, because the amount of opportunity outside of those 15.5 square miles is crazy.
Yeah.
But now I still can't go in the city. I still have people that ask me to go to lunch inside of the city or go meet up. Still can't do it. I can't bring myself to do it. But now I look at it as I look at it a little bit differently as I'm driving through, because unfortunately, no matter where I go for work right now, I have to drive through that shitty city for me to go somewhere. And no matter where, because I have the whole entire eastern part of the country, so I have to drive up. Basically, I have to drive north, and the only way to drive through the north is to drive through that fucking gonorrhea infested city. But it's a little bit differently. Like when I wasn't happy, when I left law enforcement and I went to a job where I was not happy, so miserable. Like I would drive through there, and it was like the city was laughing at me. It was like, told you this was as good as you were going to get it. This is your reminder. Remember, you used to run this city. I mean, you remember when you were a sergeant, and there were times when you were a sergeant by yourself. You were the chief of police. In the middle of the night, you ran that city.
I'm the buck stops here when you're the midnight sergeant, the city manager. No one else is there. It's me calling the shots.
I could have done anything I wanted, and some of the times I did. And that's why you and I have talked about it on this show about getting pulled in by II and what they forced me out, what they pushed me out of the department for. If you only knew a fraction of the shit that I did, like what you sat down and interviewed me for, That's fucking child's play.
Get out of here.
Yeah, like
with my city, they were creating problems that didn't exist. For example, one day out of the blue, we need to start recording all of our use of forces. Which I'm like, we already do that.
yeah, I was gonna say
No, I mean, they redefined what use of force was. What?
Yeah, I know where you're going.
Every time you have your gun out, we need a use of force, and I'm like, fuck that. What am I gonna do when I search a building? Do a goddamn use of force?
DC did that. DC did that.
But wait, they're like, you got your gun out when you search a building? I went, yeah, I do. Don't you? Well, maybe not then. Okay, well, where's this coming from? Why do we need this? So like I said, they're starting to create problems. So then they started saying, well, anytime you put hands on someone, I'm like, so when I do like the escort hold, when I grab you by the upper arm and I'm like, come on, come with me, that's now a use of force. Do you need that recorded?
Yeah,
because that's the first step. I'm putting hands on you. You're coming with me. You're under arrest. So do you need it then too? Because this is like a 5-page fucking document.
Yeah.
Well, but if they pull away, then we need the use of force. Okay.
Yeah. I
So
think
again, you're creating paperwork that doesn't need to be done. And sorry, I'm roundabouting and I'm rambling. I shouldn't be. It's early. We do these in the morning in case anybody doesn't know.
really early.
Busy professionals. But they were creating problems. So then at the end of the year, the council's like, "Oh my gosh, your use of forces went way up." I'm like, "No, we did the same shit. We're just calling it something different.
It's a numbers game.
It's the duck test. It's not a duck anymore. It's a goose or whichever. But I didn't understand the purpose of it. So, but
it's taking transparency, and a lot of agencies are doing that now. They're taking transparency to a dangerous and unhealthy level. And the funny part is the stuff that they should be transparent about, they're not. And it goes like Alexandria City Police Department, where I used to work.
But is it transparent? I'm sorry, Nick, I couldn't hold that in. What is transparency?
Right. What's transparent to you is not transparent to me. And it goes into like the FOIAs that I put in for.
Yeah.
Some of the FOIAs that I put in for are very, very basic FOIAs. If you're doing everything that you should be doing right and you have integrity, those FOIAs should not be a problem. But instead, and we talked about it on the last episode.
You mean your $2,500?
$2,500. I just sent one in. I sent one in last week, and of course, this city every single time the 7-day mark hits, they send me another email saying we need more time, and according to FOIA law, we can ask for an additional 14 days. Every fucking time. I've never gotten a FOIA from them within 7 days. This
and you're
FOIA,
never going to get one.
No. This FOIA, I can't wait to see how much this one is going to cost me, because all I asked for, which is public knowledge or public accessible through FOIA, I want to know the salaries of every single person in the agency from the chief down. I already know how much the chief makes.
Yeah.
But I want to know the salaries, because there were a whole bunch of promotions that just happened.
That's
a lot of them shouldn't have happened.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good. And a lot of them shouldn't happen. And I want to know what the city is paying them, where there's shootings every other day. The crime is out of control.
But we're having cookouts.
And we're having cookouts.
Sorry, I don't want to bait you.
They stopped doing it. They stopped doing it. Like
our show.
Some little birdie inside that department just told me that they had a meeting, and the meeting was about risk versus reward. I shit you not. That's the term that they used.
They're listening.
Risk versus reward. And so now my old agency is they're looking at anything that you want to do in the community is the risk worth the reward.
Nice.
It's crazy, because
Well, Nick, I'm
How about
proud
you
of
just
you.
go to the basics? No, well,
I'm proud of you. We're enacting change here. 30,000 people listening nationwide.
you know who I am? I am the
You're one pissed
unappointed
off former sergeant, so you are.
Yeah, yeah. Well, technically, I am the unappointed chief of police for the Alexandria City Police Department.
Your advisor, police advisory.
Yeah,
I was on a
and
police
here's
advisory board. Now you're on the roll call room police advisory board.
yeah, well, the best
Looks good.
advisory board that I was on was the President Obama's 21st Century Policing Report Advisory Board. It was one of the weirdest experiences in my career because I had no idea, because I was a subject matter expert in community policing in the nation.
Well, of course
right?
you are. Yep. Well,
So
that's wow. I didn't
my,
know that. That's a great honor.
it was a great honor, but my department, they were like, listen, you're going to go to DC and you're going to meet with a whole bunch of people. You're going to be discussing the community policing pillar for the president's new initiative. At the time, we didn't know it was called the 21st Century Policing Report. And I also didn't know the magnitude of it, right? So I went in there and I was like,
because
I've been on a whole bunch of these. Well, I've been on a bunch of these with the IACP, where the IACP has advisory boards and nothing winds up happening with it,
right?
Because it's the IACP, fuck them. And so, I walk in and this is in this fucking 5-star hotel in DC in a ballroom. And when I say ballroom, it is the size of you just picture a ballroom in DC. It was huge.
You're not talking about your underwear. You're talking about this is a large, lavish.
And here I come in with my uniform nicely pressed with these 3 stripes, and I walk in and I am severely outranked.
Horribly underdressed.
Art Acevedo was there. Remember Art Acevedo?
Your man.
He sat next to me. Him and I had conversations about.
And you didn't choke him out?
No, believe it or not, him and I got along very, very well. I don't believe in his politics, but his thought process for community policing is spot on. Now, where muddies
Nick,
the water.
Let me push pause there real quick. I want to share with the nation what a consummate professional you are, because as much as you give this man hell, you're giving him a win right now on your show, and I want to thank you for that, because that shows professionalism and fairness. That not everyone is a complete fuck up, but they do have positions to where they can succeed. And even the worst people in the world have a good day once in a while.
Right. But I also think he's a fucking prick and shouldn't be a chief of police anywhere.
But you gave him a win on your show. That's the point I'm trying to make. Yeah, maybe he's a prick and he shouldn't be a fucking chief, but when it comes to community policing, the guy's got his shit together and is pooping a
right.
group. So.
And at the time, I didn't know his politics. I didn't know anything about the guy. I think at the time he was a chief of police somewhere in Texas. I if I could recall, it was in Texas. That's how far back it went. Yeah, it was something like that. And then so across the table from him was I think his first name is Andre Bates. Bates was controversial. I think he was Philly PD, or he was controversial. He just retired from law enforcement, I want to say this year or last year.
Now, you mean controversial in a positive way, or controversial as in just being an asshole?
No, controversial, and he got caught up in politics because he has repeatedly worked for stupid politicians. And he is a great one of the best police minds of this generation. And he's been caught up in politics, and he's been caught up in policing in cities that don't want to be policed anymore. That think it's okay. Yeah, I mean, the guy has just unfortunately has gone from one terrible situation to another. He was the Dallas police chief when those 6 officers got killed.
Wow. Okay.
Because I remember I remember escorting him around during police week because the city of Alexandria was the host city.
Right.
So I would drive around everybody, and I met Bats during that.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I was mesmerized about how he was there, just compassionate and very, very smart guy. And
how can you not be? I mean, you lose 6 officers, you're going to D.C. the year they put them on the wall. And you're going to be there with the family. You're going to hang out in cops. You're going to go to the cops concerns of police survivors meal and what they do there.
You know what struck me about him? Because I've driven a lot of chiefs around, a lot of sheriffs and chiefs at police week, and you could see a lot in the rearview mirror. And
was he humble?
For him, he was humble, and I don't want to out the guy. You know, like I don't want to out him.
No, I mean, I'm just, I'm curious for his professionalism. How was he, when the
let's
camera's
put it
off?
this way. In one instance, because at a point, he gave me his phone number and I gave him my phone number. And I told him, just message me when you want to ride and I'll have one ready for you. And he had messaged me and I met him at the host hotel on the side instead of him coming out through the front. Because he was very well known, and it was like driving around a star,
Oh wow! Well,
and I remember him
another star driving around a star. That's what that'd be like.
About that, but
little did he know the greatness that was driving him around.
I should have started like a podcast karaoke car or some shit like that.
Have your boom mic in the front as you're driving around.
Yeah,
we should. I think we just come up with something. Roll call on the road.
Hey, put a pin on that because I'm going to explain to you something about that later on.
Oh, good.
So he had gotten in my car, and he was sitting in the back seat, and he was like, "How's your day going today, Nick?" And I was like, it's a rough one today. I got a lot of stories, of stories, man." And he's like, "I'm sorry to hear that, buddy." And I was like, "How are you doing? How are you holding up?" And I just remember him putting his head down, and for a good period of time, putting his head down. And I could see his shoulders like moving like this. And you can tell it all kind of.
Yeah, it was sobbing.
It was hitting him.
Sure it was.
And I remember saying to him, I was like, "Hey, do you mind if we make a stop?" And he was like, "Sure." And I took him to Arlington. I took him to the Iwo Jima Memorial.
Oh, yeah, beautiful spot.
And we just walked over there, and we just like got out of the car.
Memorial.
And we just stared at it. And it stuck in my head. And I followed him in the media from then. And I followed him when he left Dallas. I followed him all over the place because he, to me, was what embodied a good leader. Now, I never worked for him. I don't know what it was like working internally with him, but I know something. I know about compassion. I felt the same way about my former chief before Dickhead. The chief that promoted me to sergeant. There were a lot of people that did not like him, did not like him. When one of my officers got terminal cancer, he called me every single day at 8 p.m. It never failed. And he sat on the phone with me for an hour, and we just talked.
That's what leaders do.
Yeah. Could he make a decision? Absolutely not. He was the worst.
But he was a good guy.
His desk was where men. Yeah. In my opinion, like, being a good leader isn't all about approving memos and process. It's being a human. It's interjecting human emotion into what your decisions are. The choice between ruining somebody's career versus compassion and understanding.
Which is a great segue. Which is a great segue.
It is.
Where we've lost in the profession today, and this has been kind of a buzzword with other things. So we've lost that. taking care of people. And we touched on it briefly in a previous episode, was that, you got these guys that are out there, and I want to share with you a little brief story, if I may, and it all ties right in. Last night I went to graduation at the police academy where I work, and I've committed to myself 2 years ago that I will go to every graduation of every class that I teach, because I think it means something. It adds a little more to shake their hands there at the end of it and say, hey, congratulations, come up and see me in advanced training, blah, blah, blah. So one of my students was the grandson of a former captain of mine at the sheriff's office. And he was there. And I was excited to see, he says, hey man, my grandpa's here. He's up there in like the third row to the left. And I said, oh great, because the instructors all set off to the left with the provost and the department chair and all that. And my bosses are all there too. So I went up there and I knelt down behind him. I said, good God, they'll let anybody in this place. One thing, he turned around and he said, holy shit, Mark, how you doing? And they shook my hand. He got a great, and I haven't seen this guy in probably 5 years. But he cared. And when his grandson said, yeah, I'm thinking about going to work at that department that they were at the sheriff's department. And I said, that used to kind of be that was the tip of the spear. Back in the day, everybody wanted to work there because of the management that was there, and the managers the leadership. I'm sorry, correct yourself, Mark. Check yourself. There was leaders there, and there was him, and I named off 3 or 4 other guys. I said, when those guys were there under that sheriff, they took care of you. Now, if you fucked up, yeah, you kind of got it coming to you. But they're the kind of guy that, and he chewed he gave me some of the greatest ass chewings known to man, but I deserved them, And I was just a reserve. Wow. This is where I was still, trying to figure it out. But I wanted to work there, so I was in there on my own time, doing the job. Because back in those days, in the 90s, you couldn't get a fucking job as a cop, bro. You had to do it in my world, you had to do it for free for a while before improve yourself, unless, a department hired you and sent you to the academy, because it was tough. You couldn't get a cop job. I mean, I showed up for one job in Piqua, Ohio, and there was like 260 candidates, and me and my buddy went in there. We're like, what the fuck are we doing here? But I felt pretty good. I scored like 60.
Wow.
For one job. But anyway, he was there. They were leaders, and they took care of people. They had a policy and a procedure too. But where I'm going with this is that I told him, I said, when I was there and your grandpa was there, it was a great place. And the people that are running the department now came up under these people, but they don't have the same philosophy. They don't take care of the people the way these people took care.
No.
As a matter of fact, the one captain there is just an absolute tyrant. So, and there's a whole other story with that, with my investigation, where some unredacted documents were publicized. But taking care of your people, okay, is where we've lost that. And we had a Nick's Picks question a while ago. When did it change? What changed around Ferguson? And I strongly feel that, that's when these policy companies came out and they all started getting more mindful of the policies. And they've lost that. And like we were talking about that guy there, is that, you need to care somewhat. You need to have some empathy for your folks, and especially right now. And thank all of you that are listening right now, especially if you're listening on Midnights. We appreciate you. And thanks for being in, and thanks for sticking it out. And I was talking with Kelly yesterday, and she was talking about one of her colleagues that's working, and she's like, man, I can never see her because she's like on double mandatory secret probation overtime, and because there's just nobody to work. And
it's a terrible way to live.
It really is. And I was kind of digesting that, and I'm thinking, they're just gonna be calling off sick. I mean, you're just killing these folks, it's
and then get crucified for calling out sick.
Yeah. Oh, okay, great. One of my colleagues, he's a sergeant, and he got called into court, and it went to trial. So he shows up. He worked midnights. All right, worked his 8-hour shift. Got off at 6 o'clock in the morning. Had to be back in court at 8:30. The trial went till 3:30. Okay, so Walks out of the
messed up.
courthouse. He doesn't get home until 4:00. So he calls his major and he says, "I'm not coming in tonight." "Oh, well, could you come in at like 2 a.m.?" And I went, "What? You just worked a double. What do you mean come in at 2 a.m.?" I said, he's like, "Well, fuck it, I'm up now. I might as well just stay till 11. And I said, "No, fuck that. Your health is more important than just covering the goddamn shift." I said, "You just worked a double. Is no one," I said, "What's wrong with this guy? Is he not absorbing the fact that you've been up for almost 30 hours straight and he wants you to put, and he wants you to put a gun on and come in and try and manage a crew?"
Dude, I can't even tell you how many times as a sergeant, other sergeants, I wasn't the sergeant of their team, but their officers would come in and go, "Hey, listen, I got court in the morning and I'm supposed to be back here later on in the evening." And I'm like, "Okay, what do you want to do?" And they're like, "Well, I know leave is closed." And I'm like, how much sleep do you think you're going to get from the time you get out of court? And they're like, "Well, court is at this subpoena is at 10 a.m. I should get out of there by like 1 p.m. And if I get 7 hours of sleep, that puts me at around 8, 9 o'clock at night." And I go, "Great. You want to come in at midnight and just work from midnight to 8 a.m.? Or do you want to come in at 1 and go home at 8 a.m.? And they're like, "Oh my God, that would be incredible."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "All right, I'll put you down on the PD3. That's what's going to be." And then their sergeant would come rolling into my office and go, "Did you just authorize so-and-so to, like, we're going to be short somebody for half a shift?" And I go, "Then go out there and work their beat." No, go out there and go work their beat.
Yeah,
You're coming in all refreshed. Just because you got stripes on your shoulder doesn't mean that you can't handle a fucking domestic violence call or you can't handle a fucking traffic accident. Go out there and go fucking do it.
Nick, you've lit my fire. You've lit my fire. So let me tell you, supervisor,
because the majority of them, yeah.
All right, pull out. I'm going to pull out the soapbox. All right, guys, we're short, and if your administration, your sergeants, and your people aren't out there covering shifts where they can, you're working at the wrong department. I'm just going to tell you that right now. And then my former agency, well, you know, we were a small department, and there's no reason why admin isn't day shift at least taking something. You know, you pulling detectives out and throwing them back in uniform. "Oh, well, I'm doing the dope thing." Whatever. If you're not covering the street, you are a police officer. And if you're not out helping carry the load, then you're part of the problem. And it's just like we touched on before. All these major incidents, Sergeant, where the hell are you at? You back in the fucking department?
Yep.
You sitting in there where your car's out front idling? And they're playing fucking solitaire like I've seen before? "Oh, well, I've had my day on the street." Well, let me tell you something. During graduation last night, I had a really great conversation with a great friend of mine that's a chief, you know, and it really made me feel great. We were talking about lack of empathy and leadership and whatever. And these chiefs that were at graduation last night, they're the real deal. And I'm proud to know them. And they know me. They call me by my first name. One chief in particular, "Mark, I haven't seen you in a while, blah, blah, blah." So he was talking about the supervisors getting involved. And a friend of mine recently got promoted at his agency, and he's a go-getter, and he was motivating the troops to get out. And the one thing that he said to me was, "Your sergeant should never be outdoing your men. And if they are, then, you know, they need to be a better motivator of the men." But the message I was getting there was being that sergeant that was willing to go out. And I can tell you, in my days, you know, the standards that I set, I was also willing to uphold them. So if I'm going to put X amount of cars on the curb, I strived to get that done. So get out there and do the work. If you're short, then pick it up. You know, whenever my guys, I would buy them a meal on Saturday night, and I would say, "Here, go eat." "No, Sergeant, we want you to eat with us." "Well, but if a call comes in, I'll get it. I want you guys to relax. I want you guys to have a meal together and have some fun. And then we'll go out and we'll start kicking it." You know, and of course, I would challenge them. You know, "I'm going to get an OVI tonight. What you motherfuckers going to do?" You know, and they would have fun doing that. And sadly, you know, once I had the crosshair put on me. I didn't do shit because I was afraid to. I was afraid to do my job, and I told my boss at the time that, well, you're not doing anything. Yeah, I'm afraid to. Hell, I've done nothing now. Look what you did to me. But the point I'm trying to be is be motivators of men, be motivators of your crew, be the leader, have some empathy, and get out there and do the job. If you're not out there doing the job, you're part of the problem.
Yeah, I think.
Sorry, that was a tangent.
No, it was spot on to what we were talking about, and I think the pendulum sometimes swings too much. Like you and I talked about a traffic stop where a chief of police was stopped.
Was it chief or sergeant? It was a rank officer, wasn't it?
It was a rank officer, whatever it was. But this traffic stop went terribly wrong. Which is, I've always, and you and I are on the same philosophy because we talked about this when the story came out. Whenever I got pulled over, I never shoved my badge and my creds in that officer's face. I never did that.
I didn't either.
I didn't either. What I did say was, just for the officer's safety, was I would say, hey, listen, I'm just letting you know I am armed. And then it goes into conversation, which is oh, why are you armed? I'm a police officer at such and such, has no bearing on this traffic stop. Don't let it influence what you're about to do. And that's always what I did, and still to this day, that's what I do. I think I've gotten pulled over more not being a cop than when I was a cop.
You speed law violator.
I am, and I'm in Virginia, and Virginia state troopers are brutal, man, brutal. But I've been on the other side of that, where I've pulled people over specifically from the north. And I could say this because I'm from New York City.
Yeah.
But New York City folks are the biggest violators. You can't even get up to the car, and they got their wallet with their badge hanging out. And you're like, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Why don't you put that shit right back into your car?
Are you annoyed? Were you annoyed when they did that?
I can't stand that. I was annoyed because you're putting me in an uncomfortable situation, because if somebody drives by and sees that, now you're putting
somebody's getting
well, you're putting me in a bad situation, because how do I defend not giving you a ticket? And I've always had the philosophy, I never wrote other cops unless you were an absolute prick, or you were a DUI. I mean, I was right outside of DC. I was right outside
or
DC.
A flagrant violation.
Correct. I was right outside of DC. I can't tell you how many Secret Service and FBI agents that I have pulled over for DUI. I can't even tell you how many. A lot.
And you arrested them?
I will plead the fifth on that, but I will tell you that they are the biggest pricks when it comes to it, because they're not humble in any way. In one particular case that I remember, it was an FBI agent. I actually had to call his supervisor to come out and come get him, because he was so belligerent and so obvious that he was drunk.
Wow.
And wherever this guy is today, should be thanking his lucky stars.
Yeah,
he was one of those people that were like borderline, that were like, dude, you are gonna go to jail tonight.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to work with you.
But that was in the day when we had more discretion. That was in the day before you had
body cams. Yeah.
Well, but you didn't need them, because, again, what were you doing? Were you violating any laws? I don't think so. You were taking care of your people, which is what you are as a peace officer. And let me tell you, I had a guy, not a similar story. Here's what I did with one of my citizens. We had a rowdy bar, and we lit this person up, and the motherfucker drove all the way to the bar before they stopped. They stopped right in the middle of the fucking parking lot. So it's like, Jesus Christ, here we go. This is going to be a fucking shit show. And as usual, I rolled in behind my officer, and now everyone starts coming out, right? So I'm telling them all to get back up. So this one guy, one of our locals, I mean, he was just drunk and just being an asshole. It's like, why don't you leave? Why are you guys always fucking with everybody? And I said, get your ass back in the bar. You never cut anybody a fucking break. And he's just chipping his beak. And he continues. And I'm like, I look at my guy. Well, we have one under arrest. So what I want to do is go snatch the sumbitch off the porch and say, all right, fuckhead, you just talked yourself into a night in jail, right? So disorderly after warning. So I said, just get in the bar. And I told my guy, put this motherfucker in the car and get out of here. But no, leave now. Get him in the car and get out of here. I'm going to disperse this crowd. So he takes him back. Of course, we arrest the guy and yada, yada. Lo and behold, 2 hours later, guess who gets stopped? The asshole. Now, hear me out. We get him out of the car. I do horizontal gaze nystagmus. And I said, this is what I'm going to do for you. I'm going to take you home. His jaw dropped, and he's like, blah, 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 blah. I said, after your fucking display down there at the bar tonight, are you trying to humiliate me and my crew? Because you went in there and ran your fucking shithole to everybody. What a bunch of fucking dickheads we are. I got you. If I want to take you to jail right now, you're mine, motherfucker. You're mine. You're caught. All thing I got to do is fillet you and hang you out. I said, but I'm going to take you home. Okay? Now, hear my words. I have a long memory. This is your first and your only break. You do this shit again,
you're donezo.
You're fried. So we took him home.
Yeah.
So fast forward 8 years, Miss Kelly rolls up on an OVI accident. There's our guy.
Idiot.
There's our guy. So she and he never said a word the whole time. Never, you motherfuckers, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. Well,
his defense attorney. Oh, I got to give you the cherry on top, man, real quick.
Yeah.
His defense attorney calls me. He says, oh, come on, man. Can't you cut this guy a break? Because we hit him because he had one previous. So we hit him here in Ohio with the A2 section because he had a previous conviction or previous refusal. So 451119 A2, for those of you that are out there looking it up, just look it up and read it. It's a good bend you over the barrel and fuck you when your attorney says, hell no, don't blow. The first time's good. Second time, I'm going to fist fuck you with the A2 section. So his attorney's like, oh my God. I said, let me tell you something. And we were at a social gathering. And I said, I need you to go back and talk to your client. I want him to remind you of an incident. And I described it in detail. I think he even had the date down. I said, call me back. He said, okay. I said, and then we'll talk about what we're going to be willing to settle on. Okay. He called me back 2 days later and he's like, holy shit, dude, you did cut him a break, didn't you? And I said, yeah, A1A. He's pleading to A1A. That's what we're going to do. Other than that, no, fuck him. We're going to trial on
no
this.
thanks.
And he's like, we'll take that. So he went in and wrote out the plea. So, but taking care of people, that's how you take care of people. And it wasn't just cops that I cut breaks to. And I can sit here and spend the rest of the episode talking about people that I've taken care of and took them home and throughout my career, where it's not all cops. And the sad thing about it is today is that I don't think you can do that. But when you have an officer that is doing, what was that guy doing? 90 in a 25 and then expects a break?
In a cruiser. In a cruiser.
He was in a cruiser or a city car?
I think he was in a city cruiser, like a city unmarked car.
Oh, okay. An unmarked. Okay. I don't want to be confused with the one. Was that down
because
in Florida?
He flashed his lights. That was the thing. When he got pulled over, he flashed the lights and was like, hey,
fuck you. Now, if I got you on the curb, I've done that before. I've got you on the curb. One night I stopped my good friend. There was a detective, and they just had a homicide, so he was getting it up the road, and I'm like, who the fuck is this guy? I didn't recognize the car, and I stopped. I walked up. I'm like, get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
Because I knew where he was going. He got called to the scene. He had to go.
But street crimes guys used to do that shit to me all the time.
Well, before we get down the rabbit hole, I want to go back to that guy. So it was a story because he raised so much hell out of getting a ticket. Wasn't that the cruxus of the story?
Yeah. If he had just stayed quiet.
Who did that? Did Yates make a comment? Was that on Dr. Yates's daggone the Law Officer magazine? Was it on Police One?
It was on his.
Okay.
and they had covered that story because the guy had made such a ruckus about getting a ticket, and he tried to
be done.
Yeah, he tried to turn it into look where law enforcement is going, and there's no discretion, there's no brotherhood anymore. He's partially right, because now you have officers out there too scared to let people go because
the cowards that are in the chief's office now.
Right. You get scrutinized for not writing him. Are you covering up for him? You've taken discretion away from officers out there. Like, they have to double and triple check themselves, everything that they do. I mean, dude, look at all the calls you and I went to back in the day that we had massive discretion on that probably could have gotten us fired today for not making an arrest or for making an arrest. So you're fucked either way, man. You're fucked either way. It's just a matter of
a 6-pack of fucked.
Right. It's a matter of how much fuckery do you want, you know? Like, and
we should have Nick's fuckery factor.
Yeah, there's so many of them, bro.
We'll put a big gauge back here, but with my bourbon collection, and say, hey, wait, let's go to Nick's fuckery factor.
Yeah, it's just crazy to me that we've gotten. I mean, it's kind of a temperature check on the profession as a whole, where you have officers don't have any discretion whatsoever anymore, and it's crazy.
Your hooker's calling, or your cat's calling.
Yeah. Her name is Destiny.
Well, but the thing about it is that what's compounding that, Nick, and making it worse is you got rookie officers training rookie officers, and that level of discretion is there. You don't have the old hats like me and you going, hey, look, son, come here. And I think what we've also lost here is the mentoring. And where was that? Was that in Florida, where we had a sheriff's department stopping a city officer in marked cars and writing tickets? I'm like, where the fuck does this come from? You don't know what the fuck I'm going to. You know, I may have gotten called in. You know, I've had canine officers and there's 3 of them that lives in the city and surrounding. You know, if I see another canine officer busting ass through my city in excess of the posted speed limit, am I going to fucking stop it? No, I don't know what the fuck you're getting called in for. It's like, what the hell is wrong with you people? However, on the other side of the coin, don't be abusing that, like that deal down in, and this isn't new. I mean, this was, remember that Florida state trooper who stopped a city of Miami officer? Because he was doing like 100. Yes. Cuffed him on the side of the road. I'm like, fuck you, you putting cuffs on me for a goddamn minor misdemeanor. We'll stand here and fucking fight it out. But number one,
especially when
go ahead.
It's just crazy.
We can debate that all day.
It's such a crazy profession right now. It's just it's scary. Like, I feel for all of you that are still doing it. Like, the amount of anxiety and fear every single day, not by drug dealers, not by people trying to kill you on the street, but by policies trying to stab you, by command staff trying to fuck you over. Like, they
we're the poster
like they
children
have
for that.
Yeah. Oh my God, dude. I mean, I'll be honest with you. If you're listening to this thing, you should have left in 2019 when the fucking roll call room started.
Yeah, the roll call room started in October 2019 is when my nightmare started.
Yeah, and I'll tell you
anyway,
this,
go ahead.
I forwarded you a recent email that I got yesterday, the day before.
Yes.
I'm getting a lot of those. I'm getting a lot of emails from people that are like, "Hey, listen, I've been listening to your show. I
love the new format.
Love the new format. You're dropping mics like left and right, and I want to get out, but I just don't know how to get out. I don't know what else is out there that's gonna pay me what I'm making, and I just don't know how to get out. So we're going to do an episode on that, and I think we're going to get Dr. Dave to come on because there's a psychological factor with that, with making that. And I've been there. You've been there. It's a marriage that you have to turn around and sit down and go, this marriage is not working anymore. and
No,
I
it's
have to
it's an
leave.
abusive marriage, Nick. You are the
Abusive.
abused person in some departments, and that's not all. I don't want to broad brush everything, because there's some departments out there, and then occasionally, well, fuck that guy. And I had that the other day. Well, this chief that you love so much, and I'm like, well, I don't love the guy, and I realized that there's people that love my former chief, thinks he's a great guy. Me
Yeah.
personally, no, I would never speak words with him again. However, shit, I just lost my train of thought on this. I see what's rolling. Like, hey,
Yeah.
did they
We're
run
gonna
when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor?
we're
He's on a roll.
we're gonna announce your Alzheimer's diagnosis real soon.
Don't say that. I got tested for that before I could get brought back.
Oh, hey, listen. At least you're not doing a Mitch McConnell, all right?
Yeah, just deer in the headlights. No, where I was going with that is that you and I are poster children for how bad that you were abused, and I stayed there 2 years longer. As soon as this shit started, if I knew then what I knew now, I would have walked in and said, "Fuck you," and walked out the fucking door. And let me tell you guys something: with the staffing shortages right now, you have some narcissist coward that's in your administration roles that's abusing you. They need you more than you need them. Because let me be really crystal clear with you: if you quit today, it's going to take them 6 to 8 months to replace you.
They
And I've
know
had
it.
people's like, well, if I leave, then I'm fucking my crew. And I'm like, oh, here's where you got to get really serious about you and your mental health. Do you want to be, and this is what this show's about, we still, police suicides are at an epidemic rate. We are killing ourselves more than anything else. And it's the most preventable death ever. This can be stopped today. But the problem is we have these narcissists that are in some offices, like mine. Thank God that guy retired and left. That are just keep twisting and grinding on you till you're like, fuck it, I have nothing else. And this is my solution. And if your solution is to end your own life because of the situation you got put in, let's put this in big perspective. The world needs you. Whether you're a police officer or whether you're a civilian, whether you're working for the U.S. Postal Service or wherever else you are, cops, nurses, firefighters, EMTs, and teachers are some of them are put in the most impossible jobs. And as a police officer and as a first responder, you're responding to things that most humans aren't ever expected to see, and we see it over and over. So remember, we're exposed to, in a career, 800 major traumas. And the worst thing, and I can tell you, Nick and I can say, the worst thing is that you need to lean on something where you have some support, and that's your department. But when the department jerks the rug out from underneath you, that's a whole new position of loneliness and abandonment that you'll never know until you get it.
Yeah, and I'll tell you this. So far, at the recording of this episode, there's been 70 line of duty deaths from Officer Down memorial page, and from Blue No Help, their stat shows 53 suicides so far this year. So,
and that's up from the last time we looked. It was 43 last time we reported out on it.
Yeah, but poker runs and beautiful graphics will stop law enforcement suicides. But we'll get into that in another episode. It's been a great episode, Mark. I think we've covered a lot of stuff, and of course, we probably could have gone 5 episodes just on this topic, and we probably will. I want to remind everybody to make sure that you're taking good care of yourself, and if you don't have a therapist, get a therapist. Do some shameless promotion. My next book, which is volume 2 of Police Mental Barricade. This one is called Police Mental Barricade Exit Wounds, and it all surfaces around writing that first book and what happens when you do write a book, a tell-all book that exposes the things inside of law enforcement that are not working. And then some other things that are thrown in there, like my philosophy of why things are so fucked up. Um, Mark got a beautiful preview of the book. It's sitting at the editors as
So
we
good.
speak.
So good.
Well, I'm hoping.
So let me put it this way: just once I started reading it, I read like the first chapter. I read the prelogue, which is wrote by or what is it? Did I say that right?
The forward.
The forward is written by just this amazing person.
Yes. Thank you.
Once
Turk.
I see what you did there. Yeah, shout out to Spinning Our Gears. Podcast if you haven't went over there and aggravated those guys. But once I got through that, well, actually, I skipped ahead and I started reading what you had there. I didn't put it down. My wife's like, "What are you doing over there?" I said, "I'm fucking reading." She's like, "Reading what?" I said, "Preview the Nick's book," which I told the fucker not to do because I knew I'd do this. And I sat there. I literally, that's all I did that afternoon. It was a Sunday afternoon. I mean, I took my laptop outside, had a wonderful Rocky Patel cigar, and enjoyed that while I read the book. But it was like, to me, I loved Policeman Barricade so much because that's what really connected me with the story and your story, and that's what inspired me to do the Shield Within podcast. Just is to bring that healing and your perspective and your depth is to me is just spot on, and I can't wait for it to come out. So
me too, buddy. Me
Pre-orders?
too. Pre-orders are out on Amazon. Go on there. You can pre-order the Kindle version. It's supposed to be back from the editor on August 5th, and then I want to kind of look it over and might add a couple of things here and there, but I'm hoping to have it out probably by the time this episode comes out. So check it out. Of course, you can reach me at nick@rollcallroom.com. You can reach Mark at MARC at rollcallroom.com. And you could also go on rollcallroom.com, go check out the content, join our Patreon.
Patreon gets you swag.
That's right. Mark, what do you got for us closing out?
See, I just want to keep talking. And I wish we had time for another episode, but you and I lead busy lives, and I just want to make a commitment to be getting more episodes out in a timely manner for you fans. So you want to do a podcast? Let me tell you something. It's a lot of work.
Yes.
It really is. I mean, what you're not seeing is the behind the scenes and the pre-production and the post-production, and where Nick and I work, and on our way into work, I can tell you I'm up at the ass crack of dawn, and I'm usually on the phone with you at 6:30.
Yeah.
And we talk.
Time. Yeah.
But we talk throughout the week as like, okay, we need to talk about this, or this is topical in the news, and some of the things we didn't get to this show, I feel, because we had important topics that came up. So number one, take care of you. You are the guy or the girl that we need to take care of. If you're thinking about getting into law enforcement, still, it's a great job. It's like what Nick said before. I was born to do this job in the year in which I was to do it. And I want to thank each and every one of you that's out there grinding away. You are valued, even though your people aren't telling you that. We appreciate everything you do. Keep doing it. Do it honorably.
Yeah.
Remember, if you got someone being shitty to you, hey, there's plenty of cop jobs out there right now. A lot of people are moving around, and I wish I had that opportunity at the end of my career, because I don't know if I'd still be doing it or not. Probably not. My body's so broke. However, we appreciate you. If you're having those horrible, dreadful thoughts, reach out. Reach out by all means. You're important. The world needs you, whether you're a police officer or not. So get some help out there and bring some peace to your life. Practice the 4 F's: friends, family, favorite activities.
All right, folks. We'll see you on the next one.